Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. You can also see me live in studio. Just go to our Facebook page, our Twitter, or our YouTube channel and see me live in studio. Look at the news stories that I've pulled. You can see the visuals that I'll play. The audio will have video to it. I'll be live on YouTube today for the show. So you can also comment there. I've got so much heavy lifting I've got to do. Before we took the break, we were talking about Connor Sturgeon, and now he's the 25-year-old gunman who is suspected of killing at least five people, including injuring several others. And before we took the break, I was playing for you the governor, and the governor, Andy Bashir, right? He had a close friend die in the mass shooting at the bank, and it's just a tragedy. But he said something there, and I don't think that we should ignore it. He says, uh, Louisville is safe. I believe Louisville is safe. That's a lie. That's a lie, and it needs to be pointed out because that's a dangerous lie. You can't go around telling people that they're safe when they're not. Louisville has more homicides per capita than Chicago, than Philadelphia, than Atlanta. The reason why the governor, of course, is lying here is because he's trying to make you think that you don't need a gun to protect yourself. And he's completely in his presser and in the entire press conference, he completely ignored the fact that the gun that the officers were wielding, that the officers had, brought down the mass shooter. And he completely avoided mentioning that. He said the actions of the police officer, which brings me to this press conference, the mayor of Louisville. I'm going to play it here for you. You can listen. Um, listen to the language here and how he doesn't go after the actions of the shooter, but he decides to vilify an inanimate object. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Everyone around our city, around the country, around the world, pray with us for those who are currently at U of L Hospital, injured, fighting for their lives as a result of another act of gun violence. And I want to thank.
And when I was watching the press conference live, I was listening to it, and as soon as they said the mayor, they introduced the mayor, I was like, you watch. In the next 3 minutes, he's going to mention gun violence, those words specifically. Here we go. Let's continue to listen.
All of the first responders, the brave and heroic men and women of LMPD, who, thanks to their efforts, quickly responded to the emergency call. And as you just heard from Deputy Chief Humphrey, without a doubt, their actions saved lives. There will be a lot more information we are able to provide as the day goes on. But I want everyone in this city to know that notwithstanding tragedies like today, when multiple people are killed by gun violence, notwithstanding tragedies when individuals are killed by gun violence, our community will continue to come together. We will find ways to love and support one another and the families and friends who have been directly impacted.
Okay, I wanna talk about something there. So there's the mayor. That was the mayor of Louisville. He gets out there and he's on this press conference, right? What actions? He says the actions of the police officers. I want to thank the officers. I want to praise their actions. And he refuses to say what the actions are. Why does he do that? Think about it for a second. Why did he vilify the gun when it came to the shooter? Why did he vilify the gun when it came to the shooter and won't say that the cops used a gun to bring down the mass shooter? He didn't say, I want to thank the gun for bringing down the mass shooter. In the mass shooter's case, he mentions the the gun, not the actions of the shooter. He praised the actions of the police, but he made no mention of the shooter's actions. Why is one about the actions, the heroic actions of the cops, and one is about the inanimate object, the gun? Why can't we condemn evil and the actions of these evil mass shooters? Let me give you an apples to apples comparison here. He used a gun to shoot, and they used a gun to stop him. So that's a wash. That's a wash. So let's get to the flippin' behavioral, the behavior and the patterns and the evil that's taking place, which is the only thing in common with all of the shootings that are taking place nationwide. There's a crime wave. We see it happening across the country. It really doesn't matter. Blue states, red states, and it really, if you want to break down the numbers of this thing, it happens in blue cities largely. But people kill people in all sorts of ways. Guns, weapons, trucks, SUVs, and all these people are always stopped, usually by somebody with a gun. But he goes, quote, this act of gun violence. So on one side, we're praising the behavior of the cops, but on the other side, we're vilifying the object. Shouldn't we be vilifying the actions of the shooter? Why can't we condemn the behavior of the shooter? Why can't they? Why can't they do that in the press conference? It's because they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to do it. It's all going up. Raping, shootings, stabbings. Sunday at the bar I actually really love. I love Cadillac Jacks. Not to say that, it's their fault or anything, right? It's just random people committing acts of violence, and we don't know what's going on here other than people are acting out in an evil way, and our leaders refuse to point to their actions and vilify their actions, and they refuse to put these people in jail and punish them to the fullest extent of the law when they commit things like, oh, I don't know, saying they're going to stab people. I'll get to that story here coming up in just a little bit, but a Sunday, the bar, Cadillac Jacks, somebody just was randomly shooting in the sky. There has to be a conversation from some leader somewhere, all leaders. I would love to see all leaders, government leaders, teachers, people who have leadership positions condemn the evil actions of people who commit violence, period. I don't know why we stopped doing that, but that's why we're seeing the rise in crime. I mean, throw in the comments or text me on the text line, 309-451-9299. Why do you think there's an uptick in crime and there's this massive crime wave happening nationwide? Now, in the 60s, there was like a lot of violent crime, a lot of violence in that decade in American history. And we didn't really learn about it in history in public schools. And I think that there was a reason for it. But there was riots, terrorism across U.S. major cities, and we're seeing it go up again. And you and I say, wait, I'm a good person. Why shouldn't I get to keep my gun, Governor J.B. Pritzker? Why do you have an assault weapons ban in front of the Illinois Supreme Court right now? It's getting crazy out there. I want my gun. They're trying to think right now, and this is my prediction. Okay, so what is it? 4/11/2023, Cat's prediction on the Morning Buzz. My prediction is that it's not going to be a federal assault weapons ban that we see. It's going to be a state by state thing. State by state, they're going to take your guns away and they're going to pass legislation that says, no more than 15 mags, something like that. But eventually, the left is going to try to, for the states that won't bend the knee and pass these assault weapons ban, they're going to try to make you afraid to use your firearm if you are in a situation where you have to use it in self-defense. They're going to make it particularly very scary for you to use your gun in a case where you have to protect yourself against somebody who is of a marginalized group, whether that be a transgender person, Black person, right? I mean, that's just what they're doing. And you can see it so clearly with not one, but 2, 3, 4, 5 cases. Number one, you probably know it already. It's Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the perfect example. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse went through hell. He went through years of judicial abuse and went through years of trying to get his name get his name out of the muck. I mean, the president tweeted awful things about him. He's a perfect example of this at the national level. Now, that brings me to the story of Daniel Perry. We're going to talk about Daniel Perry and how he was found guilty of murder after this protester's death in 2020. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. I want to get to that story, but also I want to get to, okay, you can file this under, take your, take the paper, take the news today, clip this news story because this is probably the most predictable thing ever. And you can just file that in with the most predictable things ever. Bud Light sales have fallen, and Anheuser-Busch, their stock has gone down 2% since the news broke that the brewery they were partnering with this transgender TikToker, Dylan Mulvaney, who says that women's vaginas are Barbie pockets. How offensive. But their stock is plummeting. And, let me know if you've noticed this in Walmart's. Bud Light is like on sale and they've got it like at the end caps and it's on sale. It's cheap and they've got the stock, the shelves fully stocked. Nobody's buying in. So I'm going to talk about that story here. Coming up, this is the Morning Buzz, and be sure to find me on Facebook Live. And we're going to continue our conversation on Facebook Live. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, I think that you can hear me and see me. Let me know in the comments here. So I'm very excited for this show because there is something that the post millennial is a great. And guys, don't read the mainstream news. Don't do it. I mean, there's no reason for you to be reading NBC, ABC, ABCDEFG, the three little alphabets, NPR. There's no reason for it because there is a plethora of conservative news out there. Now, I'm not saying completely tune out, right? Just if you want a main source of news, I would suggest the Post Millennial. Here, let me write that down for you. I'm going to write that down so you guys can look that up in your free time. I love the Post Millennial. That's where I get a lot of my news. But so they exclusively are reporting on this. So let me share my screen with you, and you guys can see the actual news story. Um, it's wild. The transgender person. I'm gonna get to his name, but he stabs this Portland cab driver to death. To death. And when you have transgender people with gender dysphoria, I'm really trying to get away from transgender people. It's people with gender dysphoria. I have a actual sympathy for these people, and they're going through mental illness and they're being shot up with testosterone. There's so many different things that hormones do to your neuros and to your body that I mean, of course, if you're going through gender dysphoria, and then they've said it multiple times, you have comorbidities. You're like 60 or more percent higher to have like an eating disorder, an emotional disorder, anxiety disorder when you have gender dysphoria. So people will say all the time, well, Kat, people with gender dysphoria, they they aren't committing mass shootings nearly as much as straight white males. Okay, while that may be true, you have to take into account the population size, right? So it's a much smaller population size. And if you look at the population size of transgender folks in the general population, you will see that within this population and from their population size, people are committing criminality rates at a much higher rate. And that shouldn't shock you because we know now, and this statistic you need to remember, is people with gender dysphoria uh, commit suicide at 19 times 19 times more than the general population, which is completely wild. That is a huge statistics, more than the Jews in the Holocaust, right? The people in Auschwitz, they used to kill themselves because they couldn't handle it, right? I mean, yes, yes. And, you know, I can't really blame entirely the gender dysphoria either. I think that when you tell people that you and I are Nazis, when you have the mainstream media telling people that you're Nazis, no wonder they go after you, right? No wonder they go after Christians in a Christian school, and because you're con- continually telling people, if I could go back in time and go after Nazis, I would, because guess what? They're actual Nazis. But just because I say or you say, maybe we shouldn't be lopping off the wee wees of children, and maybe you shouldn't be pumping women full of testosterone, which is effectively cocaine. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. They say that you're a Nazi for that, for having that belief. And then when you tell people that I'm a Nazi, of course they're going to go after you. So my my thoughts is keep eyes all around you. Watch your back and look behind you. And when you are confronted, or if you are confronted with somebody who clearly has gender dysphoria, I would recommend, and I am not a self-defense expert or anything, I wouldn't recommend not engaging that person like you would a normal person, or like a somebody in the general population, right? I would not engage that person in the same way, because you will be met with something that's, I mean, if not a violent outburst, then later down the road, you'll be charged with a hate crime. So if this were to ever happen to you in any kind of situation, if you're out at some sort of rally and there's counter protesters who come up against you or something like that, then you need to not engage like you would somebody of a general population who's engaging you back. And you're going to see what I mean here when we go through this Daniel Perry story. Daniel Perry out of Austin, Texas. This is a tragic story, really. And the jury deliberated and they found him guilty of murder. And you won't believe this. I got to go back on air. So hold on. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299, or you can see me live in the studio on Facebook Live. And if you're on Facebook Live or if you're on YouTube, be sure to type in the comments and be a part of the show. You can also call or text in at any time. The number is 309-451-9299. Now, before I get into the FBI sending these undercover agents into Catholic churches to investigate, quote, domestic terrorism, that's what happened. The FBI, they sent in these undercover agents into these Catholic churches. And my question is, look, is the FBI also going to be infiltrating radical groups like the one who the groups that assaulted Riley Gaines, where she had to be stuffed into a classroom for 3 hours, for 3 hours after she delivered some sort of speech, a peaceful speech? It wasn't like she was, pounding her hands on the desk. She's just an all-American swimmer, and she was talking about men and women's sports and how she thinks that it's wrong. She has the belief that that's wrong. Women's spaces should be left for women to be fill those spaces. And they engaged her and they hit her. We had men posing as women hitting Riley Gaines. Now, she appeared on Tucker Carlson, and the university sent out a statement saying that the people who hit her were actually peaceful protesters. And they actually said, "Thank you for peacefully protesting Riley Gaines, for we, the university, agree with your opinions." Wow. Um, and I would just like to see the FBI go after these militant pro-abortion groups like Jane's Revenge and like the Treehouse Antifa, right? Who are in Atlanta, and they've taken up in trees and they've shot at officers. They're blowing up smoke bombs in this cop city because they don't want a cop training facility to go up in Atlanta, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Um, I'll get into that story, but first, before we took the break, we were talking a lot about Connor Sturgeon. 25-year-old gunman who was in Louisville, Kentucky, this bank. It's the old National Bank, and he gunned down to people and injured so many people, including an officer who's fighting for his life right in the hospital. I don't know much about, what his condition is right now, but he injured a lot of people, killed 5. Um, it's sad. Now, before I took the break, I was going to tell you a little bit about Daniel Perry, which I don't think I'm going to have time for in the 6 o'clock hour here. But before we get into Daniel Perry, I did want to mention Anheuser-Busch. So, distributors for Anheuser-Busch products, the company, Anheuser-Busch, they own Bud Light. They reported dwindling sales over the weekend, and that's very apparent. If you just walk into a store, you can see that the Bud Light is all on sale. And according to a report from the trade publication Beer Business, their sales are dwindling, and Bud Light, the maker of Anheuser-Busch, was enjoying this winning streak in the stock market for 10 days. But that streak was stopped on Monday because guess what they did? They bent the knee, they went woke, so they're going broke. We're watching Bud Light go broke in real time, which is amazing. Yes, I want them to hurt badly for what they've done to women by hiring on this partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, who says that women's vaginas are Barbie pockets. It's very offensive. Could it be many beer drinkers were outraged by the partnership with Dylan Mulvaney? Is that why they're going broke? Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe there's a different reason why Bud Light's going broke. Let me know in the comments if you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, or text me at 309-451-9299. Is there another reason why Bud Light's going broke, or is it because they hired Dylan Mulvaney? The stock is still near 52-week highs, but we'll see if that continues to drop as people switch to Coors. Me personally, I never drank the river water Bud Light. I was always a Coors girl. Always a Coors girl. So I didn't like Bud Light before it was cool, y'all. Meanwhile, this man here in this clip, and if you're watching online, you'll get to see the guy. He he says Anheuser-Busch, and now this guy works for them apparently as a distributor, and this video went viral. And let's take a listen to him, and he tells us about the beer just not being sold. Here we go. Wow. So Bud Light, this distributor, he says that, look, I might not be able to feed. I mean, this actually has. So we might say, yeah, boycott, 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 and that's all great. And I suggest you do, because I do want Bud Light to hurt. But it's not just hurting the people at the top, it will hurt the people at the bottom as well. So my suggestion, if you're a Bud Light distributor, or if you work for Bud Light and you're, a little bit lower on the totem pole than the people who are the bureaucrats and the board members of Bud Light who made this awful decision, you will be the one holding the bag, and you're going to be the one suffering the most from this. And it's by design, right? That's evil corporatism. And folks, corporatism is not capitalism. Corporatism is not capitalism. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. I'll be right back. Good morning. Good morning. throw in the comments what you're hearing in the news today. On the other side, I am going to talk about Daniel Perry. This was a trial um, that happened on Friday. They deliberated and they came to the conclusion that he was guilty, Daniel Perry. Now, this is a story out of Austin, Texas. Um, and it's sad. And I think that this is the left's play. I don't know how they're going to pass a federal assault weapons ban. That's kind of insane. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen state by state. What we're seeing here in the state of Illinois, Governor JB Pritzker. Let me know what you think about JB in the comments. I would love to hear about that. Um, but and this assault weapons ban. I'm actually really scared that this is not going to go our way, pro 2A. I don't think it's going to go pro 2A because it's going to be in front of the Illinois Supreme Court and Mary Kay O'Brien. Then we've also got the other chief or the other justice there, the Illinois Supreme Court justice. They got a lot of money from Pritzker, and they're not really coming out and saying that they're going to step away. What do you think? I don't think that you should finance justices at all. They should always remain impartial. They shouldn't run as partisan individuals, and they should come from backgrounds of, either being a prosecutor or some sort of lawyer, and they should come from those guys, somebody with a deep understanding of the law. We shouldn't have politicians in our judicial system, politicians who are bought and paid for. Um, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the assault weapons ban, but this is my prediction. They're going to go state by state by state by state, and they're going to pass these sweeping assault weapons bans, and they're going to define it in different ways. Here in the state of Illinois, they're saying that rounds with more than 15 mags, that's considered an assault weapon. Maybe in the state over, they're going to consider it. 15 caliber bullets, right? You can't have, or 50 caliber bullets. You can't have big bullets like this. Um, that might be what they consider an assault weapon if it carries that kind of bullet. But for the states that don't bend the knee and don't get on the assault weapons bans, what I predict is going to happen is that there's going to be more and more stories like Daniel Perry. Let me know if you know what happened to Daniel Perry. Daniel Perry was found guilty of murder, and he shouldn't have been, in my opinion. Definitely should not have been riding around in a car. And I'll get into the story. I don't want to give it away here because I'm about ready to come back on. But basically, riding around in a car, BLM protesters flooding him around his car. He's just driving, right? And then all of a sudden, he sees a gun in the hands of one of the protesters. It's in Austin, Texas. The guy's got a gun in his car. He grabs the gun out of his car, starts firing out in out of the car. Right, he's in his seat and he's firing into the people who are surrounding his car. He winds up hitting a guy. His name's Garrett Foster 5 times, I think it was. And I mean, the protesters were also firing at him. They had guns. And they were firing at him after he started firing. Now, I don't know all of the logistics. I just kind of know the bare details and everything like that. And I know that there was a scientific expert who got up there and testified and said, look, Daniel Perry slowed down when approaching these demonstrators. The prosecutors, right, the state, they tried to say that Daniel Perry sped up into the demonstrators. That's not the case. Um, according to this scientific expert who said, no, 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 no. He slowed down. Look at the tire tracks. He slowed down. He did not want to engage with the demonstrators. And then all of a sudden, all of these demonstrators are around your car. You see a gun. What are you going to do? Right? If you see a gun and somebody's got a gun and he's surrounding your car, of course you're going to shoot first. Yeah. So that's a story I'm going to get into. I'm going to get into the details here and what this means for us moving forward. Being that we are facing an assault weapons ban here in the state of Illinois. Um, if you have a gun and it falls outside of the parameters of an assault weapons ban, likely you will be afraid to use it when the time comes. So we're gonna get into that. Hold on, gotta get back on air. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Now, I've got one text message here, and I'm going to read it. Uh, then they should be considered a threat to society and themselves and get mental health treatment they need. And you're talking, of course, about trans people who have gender dysphoria. I'm really trying to get into the habit of saying that. I'm going to address that, Buzz, here on the other side because we've got a story about a transgender person who stabbed a cab driver in Portland.
Materials truck. You've told yourself that you'd call them concerning your project. Well, this is
Okay, friends, we're going to get into not only the Daniel Perry story, but also the transgender story. So I've got a transgender story here. Wild. Uh, yes, Moses Jacob Lopez, who presents himself as a woman and appears to have addresses in both Portland and Coos Bay, Oregon. I don't know. He's got two addresses, and he was charged with second-degree murder. He killed somebody. Um, Unlawful use of a weapon, stabbing somebody, a deceased victim, who isn't named but was identified as a Radio City cab driver. So he was a driver and veteran driver at that. Has been driving with the company for a long time. Now Moses Lopez, he um, he allegedly stabbed this guy. So we're gonna get into that story. I've got Mike Coolidge on the line here, so I'm gonna go pick up the phone. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299, or you can see me live in the studio. We've got Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter. I'm live on Twitter right now if you want to see me live in the studio. Now, we've got some heavy lifting to do, folks. A few stories here I want to hit. There is this transgender story about this transgender person who went after a cab driver. Yes. So a cab driver in Portland, and the person who stabbed this guy to death identifies as a woman, presents himself as a woman. His name is Moses Jacob Lopez. And he's got two addresses, one in Portland, one in Goose Bay, and he's been charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. The victim hasn't been identified, but we do know that he was a veteran cab driver in Portland, and apparently Lopez stabbed him to death while he was driving along with the victim in a taxi ride. So just days before the brutal murderer stabbing in Southeast Portland happened, before this stabbing happened, this 30-year-old guy posing as a woman allegedly threatened another person with a weapon, but get this, was released without bail. You're threatening to hurt somebody, and they let you go quickly, might I add. I don't understand where we're at here in the United States, where we let somebody like that go off onto the streets and then he kills somebody. I mean, shocker. And this happened on Easter Sunday. The stabbing murder of a Portland cab driver is in fact a trans person with a history of threatening behavior. A little bit later in the show, we are going to talk about the weaponization of the government. And there's a committee out there, and Jim Jordan's on this committee. It's the Weaponization of Government Committee, and they've discovered now that the FBI sent in undercover agents into Catholic churches to try to investigate people for domestic extremism. So if you go to Catholic churches, if you go to Latin Mass, if you go to Mass, you might have encountered an undercover agent, FBI agent, while you were there. Also, a little bit later, concerning statistics from USA Today say that transgender and non-binary young people are coming out at younger ages. National LGBTQ youth advocacy group found that 1 in 10 having come out before 13. So you've got real young. I mean, ages what? 5 to, I mean, they start talking. I don't know when kids start to talk, like at age 3, I guess. I mean, so from like 3 to 12, you've got kids coming out as non-binary and transgender. How do they know? How do they know? I don't know. Text in at 309-451-9299 and throw in the comments. Now, right now, I want to talk with Mike Coolidge from the People Who Play by the Rules pack. Mike, how was Mike Coolidge? You might know him. You might know him a little bit. He's kind of a big deal here, folks, in Central Illinois. He ran for Congress. He also is a former Army officer, was a syndicated radio host for years. Mike Coolidge, thanks so much for coming on.
Not quite a big deal. A legend in my own mind, Kat. Good morning, and happy post-Easter 2023.
Yes, post-Easter 2023. What was your Easter like?
We, my wife and I, my beautiful wife, drove down to Georgia, where her family is from. It was rainy all day or all week last night in Illinois, and we drove to Georgia, where it was rainy the whole time too, while everyone else there experienced this gorgeous weather. But Easter Sunday was great. We did the first time I ever did the Easter sunrise service, where you wake up at literally the crack of dawn, and I'm so glad we did that because we got to experience the whole day after that. Church is over at like 7:30 in the morning, and you got the whole day to celebrate Easter and celebrate the resurrection. So yeah, it was a fantastic day. We pulled into Rochelle, Illinois, about 11:30 p.m. last night, and immediately noticed the gas prices a lot higher in Illinois than they were in the South.
I know in our newscast, I think it's like the cheapest gas is $3.19. It's gone up over the month. I think 51 cents it is. It's insane. I don't know. I just and I drive a truck, and I drive it I everywhere, and I go camping and I do kayaking, so I drive it out of Bloomington Normal to Moraine View is where I go kayaking, and it's just like,
Oh, nice.
do I even want to go? I mean, so a lot of times, do I even want to go this summer? Because it's like I'm driving, 30 minutes that I don't really have to drive, and I'm like, I don't want to waste 20, 30, $40 on gas.
You
Uh,
know, we criticize our state a lot, rightfully so, mainly because of how the people in charge of the government of it are so inept and are destroying it little by little, and in some cases massively by massively. But are so many, especially when you drive the entire state of Illinois, wonderful, awesome things about this state, the prairies, the different parks, the place like Starbrook, which I know isn't terribly far from you. And yeah, we live in a place where people kayak and hike and hunt all the time. And then yeah, I was chatting with these young people who not that much not that younger from you, who are starting out their lives. One lives in Atlanta, one lives in Memphis, one lives in Augusta, where the Masters was, and they were talking about Chicago. And I started to brag about Chicago, how nice and the lakefront is, and how I moved there in 2000 and hadn't lived there before, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. But then I found myself kind of apologizing and saying, but you got to be careful when you go there now. And I used to not have to tell that to people. You really have to be careful going to any major city in the United States, but especially now Chicago. People are talking about that mayoral race there throughout the country. We have the most far left Marxist mayor now, mayor-elect, in the biggest city in the Midwest, not just in Chicago, in Illinois. And
it's Mayor Lori Lightfoot, but but with a weenie, right? Allegedly. I mean, I don't want to assume Brandon Johnson's gender,
yes,
or Lori
no.
Lightfoot. I mean, the bag or the cat's still out of. I don't know. We don't know if Lori is male or female. I have no idea. I'm not assuming anybody's gender here, but I'm assuming, right? Brandon Johnson is just Lori Lightfoot, but in the male form.
He's worse. He is absolutely worse. I promise you, politically, he is ready to destroy Chicago. And you say, oh, you don't live in Chicago. I don't live in Chicago. Who cares? It is.
It does.
Going
it
to
matters.
The rest of the state. Yeah,
yeah,
really,
because
really
we
does.
start to see people come here to Bloomington Normal. Because we've got the jobs here, and they're like, well, Chicago's too dangerous for me. I might as well start looking for other jobs here. What's the next best thing? Normal, Bloomington Normal. And you start to see these shootings. You start to see the stabbings that happen in Bloomington. I mean, just the other day, I delivered the story on our local news. It was some guy just randomly firing in the parking lot of a bar that I go to. I mean, I've been there, and it's starting to happen in our communities because Chicago is so bad. People are leaving, and then they're bringing their policies and things with them.
Yeah. And I mean, the optimistic way of looking at it is, well, maybe the reasonable people are moving out of cities like Chicago, and, maybe slightly right of center people moving to the suburbs and moving to small towns. I see it a little bit coming out to Rochelle. Where I live is not a suburb of Chicago. We're further west than the suburbs. We're probably a lot more like the Bloomington Normal area, a little bit smaller actually. And you have people moving in. That the prices of homes aren't that high. But what I fear, and this gets back to why I've been coming on for a while, is talking about these school board races and these municipal elections really too. And I'm telling you, like there were some wins, there were some positive results in certain areas of Illinois. In Manuka, there were some school board flips. Roselle, Yorkville, Marshall, Naperville actually elected a Republican mayor.
Wow.
Surprisingly, shockingly, yeah. And there's a couple of others that cities and school boards that I haven't mentioned, but there were also a whole lot of government union, teacher union backed candidates running and winning in deep red areas that I'm telling you, listeners, we have to keep pounding the table and hold the line. Do not think if you live in an area that voted 62% for Trump in 2020 that it's safe from the tentacles of the left.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not.
people will say it all the time here in McLean County. It used to be a very red county, and it's just, I mean, it is blue as blue. I mean, our election, awful. I think if we could have, we would have elected the dog catcher to be Democrat. And,
Hmm.
one of the school board backed by the teachers union. We've talked extensively about this, Mike, where they had a teacher union, Michael Madigan lawyer, come down here to Bloomington Normal from Chicago to defend him in these objections. It was just like a petty kind of objection to his petitions. It was something he could have easily fought on his own, and it really didn't require a lawyer, I don't think, but they brought out the big guns. They brought out the big guns, and they got the Michael Madigan attorney here and the IEA lawyers and whatnot. His name is Mark Adams, and it's funny that we were talking about Brandon Johnson, and this is what I wanted to get your reaction to.
Yes.
He gets out on his social media, which is all very public, right? I mean, I'm using it, so he gets out there on his social media and he calls Brandon Johnson his hero. He goes, my new hero. And this is a school board member. That just goes to show you how radical these people are. I mean, Brandon Johnson is the most, I think even maybe possibly even more radical than Lori Lightfoot was. He got Bernie Sanders to endorse him. So,
and what's worse is that he is he was paid for. He's an employee of the Chicago Teachers Union. It's like he's literally on their payroll. Makes $175,000 a year now as a employee of the Chicago Teachers Union. Not teaching a single kid, not making a kid smarter, and that's probably a good thing. I don't know if you saw the video of him talking about when he was a teacher. He gave out no Fs, no homework, basically did nothing, and was proud of that. You wonder why our school test scores throughout Illinois are absolutely abysmal, and people aren't graduating being able to read or write anything at all. It's because of people literally like Brandon Johnson, how he was as a teacher, absolutely awful teacher. And now he's being
and then
mayor
Mike, I mean, I hate to say this, possibly, you don't give them grades, you don't punish them, you don't give them discipline. A child without discipline, you go further down the road. They're the ones who think that they can get away with storming the Tennessee State House, right? They're the ones who become the trans Tifa that we're starting to see, these domestic terrorism groups. They're on the rise. All these people in these groups, they are little brats who never got an F in school. And that's what I think, that these little trans Tifa activists and the people who wind up stabbing cab drivers in Portland on Easter Sunday, that's what these kids turn out to be. If you don't give them discipline, if you don't give them the hard grades and show them, hey, maybe try a little, I don't know.
And you can't do and get everything you want. There's I think it was a Family Guy meme or something, and it's someone. It was a woman, someone who looks like a woman sitting at a bar, and she's doing something inappropriate on her phone, and the bartender's like, "Excuse me, you can't do that at the bar here. That's wrong." And she's like, "Oh no, I'm trans," and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry." Do whatever you want all the time.
They get the get out of jail free card every single time. It's just like I don't understand it. If anybody else were to do anything that these people were doing, they would be locked up.
And I'm not talking about trans people specifically. I'm talking about all the mentality of people, like you said. Yeah, these insurrectionists in Tennessee. Intentionally breaking the rules of the state house itself, knowingly breaking them and thinking there were no consequences. What, you're expelling us? Yeah. What did you think would happen? But yeah, they're not rotting in a jail awaiting trial for 2 years like so many people watched it on the January 6th did. No, they're on MSNBC and getting probably ready to be contributors to CNN and MSNBC and the like, and are hailed as heroes.
Mike Coolidge, we've got to take a break, but where do we find you and find out more about people who play by the rules, the PAC?
Coolidge, Koolidge, is my Twitter handle, and you find people who play by the rules PAC on Facebook. And I always enjoy coming on Kat Peterson and the Morning Buzz. Have a wonderful, beautiful week.
I know it's going to be gorgeous. Folks, that was Mike Coolidge. Go follow him on Twitter and go check out people who play by the rules of the pack there. They're doing good things, not only in Illinois, but abroad, uh, all across the nation. And we've got a lot of heavy lifting to do. I do want to get to this story where we talk about Daniel Perry being found guilty in this murder of this BLM protester. And it's totally unfair. It's unfair. So I will talk about that story on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Ooh, kind of got a cough this morning, guys. I think it's the spring weather. I don't know. Sometimes that spring weather, it's just it gets me like a little like sore throat, and I'm trying to like drink this coffee. How do you take your coffee? This is my black coffee. I like it because it's clear and it's got the handle on it. I gotta be careful though because I've spilt it in the studio multiple times. Okay, so um coming up, I do want to talk about this Daniel Perry story. I also want to talk about this. This is wild. USA Today, they've got Abigail Schreier. So she wrote a book about the sharp spike in young girls who suddenly identify as transgender. So the book was briefly banned by Target, this book that she wrote about how there's this spikeage of young girls suddenly being transgender. I mean, how do you even know your sexual orientation at 12 years old? How do you even know? Let me know in the comments what you think. But it was briefly banned by Target. I thought banning books was bad, right? And we've got UCLA or ACLU, sorry, ACLU, this lawyer coming out and he's like, stopping the circulation of this book and the ideas is 100% a hill I would die on. Okay, chill out there, Chase. And so the ACLU lawyer, his name was Chase. And I'm just, again, I thought banning books was bad, but they were okay with banning this book that Abigail Schreier put out there that implied that this is a social contagion, the conversion of our children into transgender people with gender dysphoria. So now we have teachers telling first graders that doctors make a guess at the baby's sex when it's born. So that's what teachers tell children in their sexual education classes, and maybe even their English language arts classes. We saw that in Hayworth, Illinois. Right? The English language arts teacher thought that she could teach children sex education, although that's not her place at all, considering she's not even a sex education teacher. But we've got teachers telling first graders that, yeah, actually, when a baby's born, did you guys know that the doctor just makes an educated guess about the baby's gender? Wow. um, but sometimes the doctor gets it wrong. Aw, no, the doctor doesn't get it wrong. The sex is the gender. Totally the same. So the second grade teacher said this on TikTok. That her entire class changed their pronouns when she said that they could pick their own. So this is a teacher. I mean, we had a second grade teacher legit saying on TikTok that, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that my whole entire classroom changed their pronouns after I asked them to. Okay, what did you think was going to happen? These children listen to you as an authority figure in their classroom. So the Boston children's hospital psychologist, has claimed that children know they are transgender in the womb, too. So we've got psychologists, people with degrees, folks, coming out and saying, yeah, actually, the baby that we say isn't a human, the same people who say that the baby isn't a human will say that the baby knows it's transgender. Okay, if the baby knows it's transgender, then maybe it's a human. uh, but no, it's a clump of cells. Liberal logic never fits. Our president makes it a point to celebrate Trans Day of Visibility each year. So that we just celebrated Trans Day of Visibility, and I'm just like thinking to myself, you're already very, very visible, maybe a little too visible. As the drag queen shoves his crotch into a child's face during a drag queen show in the cafeteria at your local school. So imagine my shock when I heard this from USA Today, transgender and non-binary people, young people are coming out at younger ages. So it's a national LGBTQ advocacy group, and they found that 1 in 10 children are coming out before the age of 13. So let me show you the USA Today article. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, so this is the USA Today article. This is on Twitter, and it's just I'm shocked by it. Yeah, so this is the USA Today article, and they've got transgender and non-binary youths are coming out at younger ages. The survey finds. I don't know if that's anything we really want to tout. Is it? 309-451-9299. I'm going to be coming back on here very shortly, but I do want to get to Daniel Perry. And then I also want to talk about this transgender stabber, a murderer, second-degree murder, and how this transgender stabber had made threats against somebody prior to stabbing this cab driver in Portland. So that's going to be on the air here in just a little bit. I'm going to stop sharing, and you guys can tune in.
Cat class and I got cat style.
Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me here. I've got so much I want to get to, so many stories. Oh, especially this one. Transgender and non-binary people, young people, are coming out at younger ages. So this national LGBTQ youth advocacy group, right, found that 1 in 10 kids younger than 18 or 13. So I'm talking, from the time that they can talk to the time that they are starting to experience puberty, apparently they already know what their gender is. Who knew? I've even got a Boston Children's Hospital psychologist coming out and saying that, oh, yeah, actually, children in the womb. So the same people who say that kids in the womb, like babies in the womb, aren't people, they'll come out and say that they know if they're transgender in the womb. So a Boston Children's Hospital psychologist has now claimed that kids know they're transgender in the womb. In the womb. And we've got first grade teachers telling kids in the classroom, hey, the doctors, they just kind of make a guess with the baby and the sex that it's born. But sometimes the doctor gets it wrong and they can change their gender. This second grade teacher, I've got this story here, a TikTok she put out there. She's bragging about how her entire classroom changed their pronouns when she had said, hey guys, you guys can pick your own pronouns. No wonder they changed them all. You told them to. But before I get into all of that, I did want to talk about this story. And I've been meaning to talk about it. Daniel Perry. I'm not going to get to all of it, but one thing that you need to know about Daniel Perry is that there is this push by the left to try to get you to fear using your weapon in the case that you might need to in self-defense. So the trial for Daniel Perry ended this past Friday. Then the jury got together, they deliberated, and they found him guilty of murder for the death of a man during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest. So Perry faced one count of murder and another count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon after the deadly shooting of Garrett Foster. So his name's Garrett Foster in the downtown area of Austin on July 25th of 2020. While he was found guilty of murder, the jury did not find him guilty of aggravated assault charge. So I'm going to get into this. According to this Austin Police Department, their description of the incident, I don't see where he could have done anything else. I don't see where Daniel Perry could have done anything else in this situation. And I would have done the same thing. I would have done the same exact thing, probably, had I been in that situation. I don't know, because I wasn't in that situation, but I'll get into it here coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But up next, it's Scott Robbins with Scott's Takes. You guys are going to want to tune in because this is my favorite part of the morning buzz. Scott Robbins, wonderful human being and a very successful national radio syndicated host. You guys can tune in on Facebook Live or on YouTube and throw your comments into the comments section. And be sure to subscribe our channel. It helps us get the message out there. It helps with the liberal algorithms that Facebook uses. If you like, share, and subscribe, it puts our content further out there. So go find us on Facebook and YouTube.
Cities 92-second news brought to you by
Menards. Save big money at Menards.
Gas price. knowledge that can help you prepare for what's ahead. They'll deliver your team's workwear freshly laundered. Make sure your first aid and safety supplies, mats, mops, and towels are stocked when you need them. And your fire extinguishers are inspected and in working order. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Purple hair, Megan Rapinoe. But it's not so purple. It's actually pink because it's fading and it looks bad. Megan Rapinoe. Scott Robbins right over there.
I want to see you screaming with your purple hair. Purple hair. There you go. I think we're onto something there. A little parody record, huh?
Yeah.
Kudos to Prince, by the way. Okay. We do this little segment in the morning, and I try to find, 2 or 3 things I think are out there people are going to be talking about, which I will probably talk about later on the other show that I do. But Megan Rapinoe's back in the news again. I find this fascinating and troubling at the same time. Having already achieved, in Megan's case, the pinnacle of her career by becoming a world champion while competing against fellow biological females, she's joined other athletes by signing a letter opposing the Protection of Girls and Women in Sports Act. This is unbelievable. That's right. We believe, she said, that gender equality in sport is critical, which is why we urge policymakers to turn their attention and effort to causes women athletes have been fighting for decades, blah, 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 on and on with her. The money and the Title IX access, equity, blah, it's all in there, right? Nothing, though. So she supports this, and she was joined by, now is she married to Sue Bird, or are they just living together kind of thing? I think she's married to her, right? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But Sue Bird's in there too as well, supporting. Of course, Sue Bird, one of the bigger stars of the WNBA, now retired. But they both are. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's easy for you to say, you got yours. You got it. You won. You got all the fame and adulation and money that goes with it. And you didn't have to play against any men. So it's easy to step back now and say, well, we don't think that men should be allowed to, or we think men should be allowed to play against women. Well, easy for you to say. You didn't have to compete against any.
Exactly.
I mean, and again, I've said this 100 times. I don't know if it'll ever happen or not, but I suspect it will. There's going to be a guy that's a decent, maybe even good college basketball player who just isn't good enough to play in the NBA. And there are a lot of those guys.
Yeah, because it's all about making money and that kind of stuff, right? It's all about making money.
He's going to look at signing a contract with the WNBA, professing that he's a woman. And he's going to make money. He's going to play basketball. He's going to dominate. And then he'll take his money and go away. What's to stop that from happening? Nothing. I say I am, therefore I am. And you can compete in the WNBA, for as good as the WNBA has become over the years. A man with a skill close to that of an NBA player is going to dominate. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. So we'll see what happens then. We'll see if minds might be changed at that point. Also, women's soccer. I mean, again, who's going to stop these guys from doing it? Going out on the field and obliterating female candidates because of their size. I don't know. I mean, again, Megan doesn't have to worry about that. She can go ahead and do wokeness. Again, she does wokeness to the 11th scale, right? I mean, it goes to 10. She goes to 11. That's who she is.
Right down.
We'll see.
The shaved head and the shaved sides.
Well, the whole thing, right? I mean, she's always got her fist up in the air. And the thing is, she's losing traction now because nobody cares because that thing is faded at this point in time. So you got to keep yourself out there somewhere. So that's the latest ridiculous thing, because I thought, really, I did in the back of my mind, maybe I'm naive thinking this, but I thought female athletes would band together and go, wait a minute, this has got to stop.
Oh,
we can't
well,
have
there
this.
are. But then, you have people like Riley Gaines going out there and speaking out for women on behalf of women, saying, no, this is our space. This is our space. You leave it alone.
Yeah.
You get out of my space. This is female sports. You're not allowed to participate in female sports. And then there's a angry mob who wants to rip her apart limb from limb. I mean, I'm not kidding you. They had to shove her into a classroom for 3 hours, so that way the mob didn't get to her. And it's like, if
But
you
where-
speak out, you're
Right.
gonna die.
Where are the numbers there? I mean, there's got to be numbers here. You got to bring female athletes to the forefront. I mean, if you have a daughter, or if you have a granddaughter, in my case, or you have other members of your family, nieces, whatever, that are playing women's sports, how can you be okay with this? You can't be okay with this. And again, this is the way stuff like this starts. And then it ends up being, you know what it's going to end up being. You're going to erase and scrub women. And that's just the bottom line there. Moving on, the man who killed and injured many, many people in Louisville at the bank, where he reportedly worked until recently, seems to have some biological details that might be as a result an abundance of caution. Again, this is breaking news yesterday. 23-year-old Connor Sturgeon was a former varsity hoop star and finance turned banker who had reportedly been fired from his job in recent days. One former friend described him as a popular in high school, and his dad was a coach in Indiana. And unfortunately, we're learning more and more about this guy as time goes on. It's really amazing. And again, we'll learn more and more as time goes on too. But this doesn't seem to fit the psychological pattern we've seen of some of these guys. It seems to like be a different sort of disturbed individual, very disturbed, mind you.
Yeah, and he went by Mr. Did you see all that Mr. Concussion on social media?
And when he played basketball, he had to wear headgear because of the concussions. I thought it was weird. I saw a picture of him playing basketball, and he had this like leather helmet on. I'm like, what is that all about? Well, it turns out that's what it's all about. Yeah, it's really strange, and we'll see it. We'll see as time goes on. I don't want to go ahead and jump too far into it. All right, do we have time for the expelled Tennessee representative?
We sure do.
All right, you guys got to hear this. When I heard this the first time, I thought to myself, "Wow, that guy's taking a page out of the old Martin Luther King, Al Sharpton handbook here. Is this legitimate or is this not legitimate?" And as you go on, you realize that Justin Person is a total fraud. Is it Person or Pearson? Pearson, I guess. All right. Justin Pearson. Details are emerging about this guy of the Tennessee Three. He got expelled from the state legislature after being and leading an insurrection, essentially calling into question the authenticity of the current people that were involved. Now he's calling into to question the authenticity of himself. I want to play a clip of this guy from 2016. All right, this was unearthed, like a lot of things are after you've turned the spotlight on yourself. Normal, middle-class, clean-cut college student back in 2016. And he was talking about, he ran for the president, BSG president. He spoke about bringing together liberals and conservatives to meet in the radical middle and warned lyrical and the importance of hearing every voice. This was the way this guy sounded in 2016. All right, I just want to play this for you. And we'll play what he sounded like on the floor of the House. Here we go. Okay, you can stop it now. You can stop it now. You can stop it now. Now you get where we're going here with this, right? This was 2016. This was this guy in 2016. What changed about this guy? He decided to reframe himself as a revolutionary. And he's been doing it ever since. Sure does garner a lot more attention than that guy would. But listen, you know the way he sounded then. This was 2016. How does he sound now? Here we go. Okay, we got. Okay, here we go. All right. anymore. Okay, stop it. Stop. That's the guy today. Now, which guy is it? 2016 guy. I mean, there you are. He's making the case. Hey, listen, let's try to get together in the radical middle somewhere. Let's bring Republicans and Democrats together. And he became that guy. So what happened in the meantime? When did this happen? Well, I think right? I mean, he's not going to get noticed being that first guy. That's no notoriety involved in that one at all. So he became this guy. He became Al Sharpton. I mean, I think about this, and I think about remember when Ocasio-Cortez did the fake Spanish accent thing?
Oh yeah, I remember.
You remember that when all of a sudden, she's in a dicey situation where people are actually there's some blowback involved, and she starts into this weird. I don't know what it was.
Like it was like a Spanish accent.
You talk to me like that? Yeah, why do you
Like
do that? Yeah, it was all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Totally fake. And when Hillary Clinton did the Southern thing,
Yeah, where she
remember that
starts
one?
talking in a Southern accent. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, when in reality, I think that these people are actually they're the
I
racists.
didn't come this far to know, whatever she said. So I don't know. It's ridiculous. But now this guy's become that guy.
Yeah.
It's really something. Okay, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, his husband Chasten, decided to take a shot at the folks who were pushing back on the Bud Light campaign, starring your favorite guy. He said, if you're upset about a beer company supporting civil rights, you might want to start bottling your tears. LGBTQ people drink water too. Going to boycott that next? What? Calm down. Just calm down. If you don't understand the thought process, those of you who disagree with you, then you're never going to win the argument. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that out. You don't even drink water, okay?
Don't even drink water. Don't even drink water. Are you kidding me? It's about Dylan Mulvaney being hired on as the face of Bud Light. They put his face on it. Isn't it funny,
Yes.
Scott? We banned Aunt Jemima. We banned Uncle Ben from the rice, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. There happens to be a white man. We're not talking about that. A white man on his face on a product. I don't know. I think that's kind of racist, don't you?
You don't know what you're talking about. Okay. All right. All right. See you later. Gotta go. All right.
See you later, Scott Robbins.
Now.
Bye. Right. Scott Robbins, Scott's Takes. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Be a part of the show by texting in to 309-451-9299. Coming up, we're going to be talking about this story about how he was found guilty, folks. This guy who tried to defend himself in Austin, Texas. That's next.
The news is being brought to you by the Deep End Tap in Eastland Suites. Unwind tonight with drink specials and some local brews at the Deep End Tap.
Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You guys can throw in the comments what y'all think. Are you guys currently protesting the Bud Light? Are you protesting the Bud Light? Let me know. I think it's kind of funny, right? We banned Aunt Jemima, we banned Uncle Ben off of the rice because, it's racist and whatnot. But we've got a white man on products, and it's just interesting. We've got a white man on products, and they're perpetrating him as some sort of hero of Bud Light. And I don't know. I'm banning. I'm boycotting Bud Light. I never really liked it anyway, so it's easy to kind of for me. Although I did buy it a lot for like parties, outings, things like that. And it's the blue collar drink. And that's one thing I did want to talk about, right? Is Bud Light, they think that they're doing some sort of some sort of like inclusivity thing. So the vice president of marketing, her name is Alyssa Heinerschied. So this is the person behind the whole Bud Light thing. And she decided that the brand was too fratty and that it needed some more inclusivity. So that's why she went for this Dylan Mulvaney caricature. And I can't even. Dylan Mulvaney isn't even a real person. He calls women's vaginas Barbie pockets. It's truly sick. So yeah, I I want to talk about transgenderism and non-binary people and how it's this fad where they're trying to get the younger people, and you start to see Gen Z identifying as LGBTQ, whatever, and it's more and more younger people. Now, Bud Light, she saying that this Alyssa Heidersheed, the guy or the girl behind this whole thing, she's this marketing. I'm drinking my matcha latte and I'm going down playing on yoga mats or whatever during work. Then she comes out with this. She says that it's too fratty and it's not inclusive enough. And many of us enjoyed the lowbrow and funny commercials of the past because they were not elitist. That's what the status of the beer used to be. Bud Light is a blue collar, a brewski that the guys and gals can drink while they're watching sports, hanging out in the garage, right? Relatively really cheap beer for young people to drink who don't want to spend, $20 on some sort of hoppy IPA. No one claims it's for, the connoisseurs. Or it is a blue collar beer. Okay. Nobody's trying to claim that it's not. Um, I'm betting most of its clientele is not made up of the kind of people, though, who watch a biological male like Dylan Mulvaney prance around in a dress and take bubble baths. I don't know who watches that kind of stuff either. It's very disturbing. Why would you watch somebody take a bubble bath? Why would you watch a grown man prance around in a skirt? I don't see where that's entertaining. Yeah, sure. Sometimes I watch cat videos and kind of like numb my brain a little bit. Um, I don't think I would seek out that kind of content at all. I only have that content because it's something that I got to tell you what's going on in the world. But he talks about his girlhood. Um, and it looks like I'm right, right? Their clientele is not going to put up with this because Bud Light is suffering. They are suffering right now, and I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it that they're gonna recover from this. Bud Light. I think it's gonna take a very long time if they ever recover from this. What do you think? Will Bud Light recover? Coming up next, I do want to talk about this Easter Sunday stabbing, which was really kind of intense. So this is a guy, and I'll show you his picture here. I'm going to share the screen um, of this guy who stabbed a cab driver. Yeah, there he is. So you can kind of see the picture here. That's Moses Jacob Lopez, who presents himself as a woman and appears to have addresses in both Portland and Coos Bay. And he was charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. I'm going to say this again. Trans people, and I'm going to throw this up on the screen because that's important. Kill themselves at 19 times the rate general population does. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll be talking with Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus for our Tax Tip Tuesday. Guys, this is your reminder. Your taxes are due. They're going to be due here on April 18th. And then I'm likely thinking that Rick and I will be talking about extensions, how you can extend and ask for more time to file your taxes. I know. I'm upset about it too. I have to pay in this year, probably like you do too, because our taxes have gone up like crazy. I do want to get to this story. So Moses Jacob Lopez, and if you want to see what this guy looks like, you can see me live in studio, and you can see what I'm using for show prep throughout the show here on the Morning Buzz. But if you want to see what the guy looks like, you can tune in via our YouTube live broadcast. Twitter, Facebook. You can find us on Facebook. You can throw in the comments what you think about this story. But Moses Jacob Lopez, who presents himself, poses as a woman, appears to have two addresses, one in Portland and one in Coos Bay, and he's been charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. This happened on Easter Sunday. There has been a victim. He was a cab driver. They're not naming him right now, but he was a cab driver for this company. It's called Radio City Cab. And he was one of the veteran drivers. He drove for the company a very long time. Now, he's been stabbed to death during a taxi ride So allegedly, it's this person, Moses Jacob Lopez, days before the brutal murder and stabbing in Southeast Portland. This 30-year-old guy who's posing as a woman was released without bail after threatening another person with a weapon. So he was quickly released. So on April 3rd, he was charged with 2 felony counts of unlawful use of a weapon and 2 counts of menacing with the Coos County, Oregon, and Coos County, Oregon. So this guy has a history, folks, and I want to bring this up. And I'm going to keep saying this until it sits with you. Trans people kill themselves at 19 times the rate of the general population. That's a statistic we have never seen. It's close, maybe, to people who suffer from schizophrenia and psychological disorders like that. I am not for red flag laws, but I think it's time we start having a discussion about these numbers and about what we should be doing to keep guns out of the hands of trans people. I don't want to see that happen. But if you're going to start talking about gun control, maybe we should actually, I don't know, look at the numbers and look at the people who are getting these weapons. And in that case, it's not even a gun, right? It's stabbing. We need to start talking about the evil actions of these people and condemning the actions of people who commit any form of violence, whether that be with a car, whether that be with Daryl Brooks, right, mowing down children in a Christmas parade in Waukesha, right, with his SUV, whether that be this Louisville shooting where the guy went in and shot 5 people are dead and many others are injured. And we need to start condemning the actions of these people who are committing violence. On the other side, we will be talking with Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. We're also going to be talking about this story out of Austin, Texas. This guy, he was found guilty of murder, and really what it was, I think, was self-defense. I will say that. And I'm going to go through the Austin Police Department's description of this incident. It's Daniel Perry.
Outdoor power for the Toro Spring Sales Event going on now. Save up to $300 off select Heim Cutter zero-turn mowers.
Okay, folks. So I am going to start talking about Daniel Perry and how they're going to be coming after your weapons. And this is my prediction. I think it's going to be state by state bans, not a federal assault ban. I don't think that they can get that through, being that the House is in majority right now. And then if you look at the election in 2024, I'm optimistic about it. I don't think they're going to get this federal assault ban, but they're going to be inching their way into your homes to try to take away your guns via the state. Then what they're going to do is stories like this one, like Daniel Perry. He was found guilty of murder in this protester's death back in 2020. And it's unfair. It's really unfair. If you look at the story here, you're gonna think the same thing. So I'm just gonna share my show prep with you. And I took this from ABC, I think it was. No, it was an ABC affiliate. Here, let me go to this news story. Yep, Daniel Perry. Yep. CBS. So they go through this, and I'm taking this from a liberal source. They go through what happened to Daniel Perry after the trial ended on Friday. The jury got together and they deliberated, and they found him guilty. So you look into the description of the incident. The car, he turns on Congress Avenue, which is in downtown Austin, and there's a group of demonstrators that just rush towards his car. And I'm going to get into the story, but I've got to pick up the phone for Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus, one of our awesome sponsors. You guys are going to want to get your taxes done. April 18th is the deadline.
Later this morning,
Fox's Garrett Tenney in Louisville. Now to Nashville. Justin Jones supporters call it a resurrection. The city council voted to appoint the ousted state lawmaker back to his seat in the legislature until a special election's held. Justin Pearson could get the same treatment tomorrow in Memphis. Republicans expelled both last week for leading gun control activist protesters inside the state house. More than 3 years and more than 1 million deaths later, The COVID national emergency is over.
President Joe Biden has signed a bipartisan congressional resolution to end the COVID-19 national emergency in the U.S. The national emergency had allowed the federal government to take steps to respond to the virus and support economic, health, and welfare systems.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. A separate COVID public health emergency remains in effect for another month. The Biden administration is putting sanctions on drug traffickers to cut off access to financial markets in the push to stop fentanyl smuggling, blamed for drug overdose deaths. He was a mad legend who made millions happy. Cartoonist Al Jaffe has died. His cartoons and parodies and humor were in just about every issue of Mad Magazine for 50 years. America's listening to Fox News.
If you're a longtime listener of the show, you know my brain is constantly running about 1,000 miles an hour, and sometimes I have a hard time turning things off to go to sleep. Do you experience the same thing? Have you found anything that'll help you but doesn't make you feel groggy in the morning? Because I haven't. Most of the time, you may sleep more, but you're not as sharp as you would if you could just sleep, right? Well, that's how I used to feel until the people at Relief Factor introduced me to a new product about 6 months ago. It's called Relief Factor Sleep. It's 100% drug-free. It's a blend of natural ingredients. It's designed to promote healthy sleep by reducing anxiety and stress, improving mood, and promoting relaxation. I have to tell you, I took this the first night and I was asleep within 10 minutes. I fall asleep so fast now. I have a bottle of it on my nightstand every night. First bottle is $19.95. So unleash the power of great sleep by calling 800-4-RELIEF, 800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. Dream big and sleep tight.
Cities 92-second news brought to you by
Driscoll Motors, your Chevrolet, GMC, and Buick dealer in Pontiac. Meet the team and shop the new and pre-owned inventory. Driscoll's, your did it, done it, and still dealing dealer.
Bloomington City Council not only approved a $290 million budget on Monday, with $70 million going toward capital projects and $65 million to go to public safety among the items in the spending plan. The council also voted to approve the hiring of a second assistant city manager, and they also approved a West Market Street Starbucks. Kevin Woodard reports.
A Starbucks store to be located on the northeast corner of West Market Street and Carolyn Street has been approved by the Bloomington City Council. Council member Molly Ward supported the store.
I think it's a welcome addition to the West Side. As I mentioned, we don't have very many options on the West Side in Ward 7 in particular for coffee shops.
Councilmember Donna Boland is concerned about flooding. She would have preferred less impermeable parking lot surface and more permeable landscape space. This is Kevin Woodard for Cities 92.9.
Gas prices in Illinois, they continue to be on the increase, according to Gas Buddy. Average gas prices in the state have risen over 15 cents a gallon in the last week. News on the air, on the web, on your app, and on Alexa. I'm Tom Davis.
Here's the Bloomington Normal Forecast on Cities 92.9.
I'm staff meteorologist John Weatherby. Looks good again today. Sunshine, though southwest winds gusting 18, high of 75. Mostly clear 51 tonight, sunny 77 tomorrow. Thursday, sunshine, high of 76.
Weather from Summers Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling.
Summers, plumbing, heating, and cooling. We take pride in your comfort. Just call Summers.
From the Johns in Lexington studio, when a body shop tells you it'll be months to get your car's body damage repaired, call Johns in Lexington. Chances are Johns in Lexington can repair your car in weeks, not months. The Morning Buzz with Kat Peterson. This is your hometown conservative talk show that examines today's stories through a brand new lens. This is The Morning Buzz, brought to you by McLean County Asphalt. They've been repairing driveways for more than 50 years. The Morning Buzz with Kat Peterson on Cities 92.9.
Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. If you guys want to be a part of the show, you can text in to 309-451-9299. That's one way you can be a part of the show. Another way is by joining me on Facebook Live or YouTube Live and commenting. I will flash your comments on the screen and address them here. Just one quick comment before we get to Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. We've got Colson. Colson says, gun reform. Guns are the issue. And Colson, Kat here. You can text in and let me know what you think. But if guns are the problem, okay, sure, whatever. Do you agree that we should take guns away from trans people then? Should we take guns away from trans people first before anybody else, being that they have 19 times the suicide rate of that of a person in the general population? They also have over 60% chance of having comorbidities like emotional disorders, anxiety disorders, eating disorders. Colson, pal, if you're for gun for reform, then we should be passing legislation that makes sense, right? And that makes sense if you look at the numbers. Now on the line, we've got Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. It's time for...
It's that time of the year. It's Tax Tips Tuesday with Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus.
Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. We've got Rick Johnson, who lives and breathes taxes. I mean, what kind of guy gets excited about describing exemptions, credits, and deductions? I mean, every time I hear the word taxes, I go run and hide. But Rick Johnson, he's the superhero fighting for you at taxaccountingplus.com. Go check him out. Rick, our topic today, it's just one, but it's a big one. IRAs. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, I can. I just want to say, hey, everybody, one more week. That's what we got here is one more week. So you can do it. All right. And one of the things that can help you do it is if you're getting your taxes prepared, when you're in the midst and you're seeing that you owe, or you just want a bigger refund, one way to do that is in investing in an IRA. There are several different kinds of IRAs. We're going to talk basically about a traditional and a Roth IRA today. Now, the traditional IRA is the one that's going to save you money now. Okay, any individual can set up a traditional IRA as long as you receive some sort of taxable income. You cannot contribute more to a traditional IRA if more than what income you have. So you must have taxable income. You also are somewhat limited to the amount that you can contribute. You can only contribute $6,000 for 2022. $7,000 if you are age 50 or older. Now, the way this works, as you contribute money, you get to take a deduction for the money that you contribute. And then later on down the road, when you're making less income and you pull it out, then you're going to pay tax on it at that point in time. But the whole idea is to pay less tax, okay? So if you are covered by an employer, a retirement plan, or through self-employment, your deduction is going to phase out around $109,000 to $129,000 for married filing joint, 68 to 78 for single and head of household, and 0 to 10 for married filing separate. Now, if you're not covered but your spouse is, then the non-covered person can take a deduction, and a phase out is now up to 2004 and 2014. Okay. Now, if you cannot deduct all or a portion of the allowable contribution, then it will be considered a non-deductible contribution. And I bring up this point because it's very important that you keep track of any non-deductible contributions as you go through your life, money you put into an IRA. And the reason it is because traditional IRAs, as I said, are taxed at when you get ready to pull them out. But if you had to put money in that was non-deductible at the time, then you keep track of that, and then that portion that you pull out is not taxable. So you don't want to pay tax twice. So keep track of your non-deductible IRAs. Now, the way that this kind of works, and it's really it's kind of amazing. It's unbelievable because here you can get a $7,000 IRA. So we're going to say that you're over 50, you can put in $7,000, and you know that you can do that up until April 18th. You don't. It's not something that you had to do last year. You can do that up until next Tuesday and designate it to be for 2022. So it's not too late. All right. Now, I got two categories here. It's the 12% bracket or the 22% bracket. That takes care of most of the people that are filing taxes. So if you put $7,000 into IRA and you meet all the conditions, you will save $840 on your federal tax return and $347 on your state tax return. So that's $1,187, almost $1,200 that you're going to save on your tax return. Now, you just put money in to $7,000 into an IRA, but you save $12,000. So it really only costs you $5,800 for that $7,000 IRA. And even better, if you're in the 22% bracket, you save $1,540 on that federal tax return. And as I said, $347 on the state. So that's almost $1,900. $1,887 that you save. That $7,000 IRA just costs you a little bit over $5,100. So it's a very good way here at the end of, and by the way, excuse me, the money that you're putting in, I mean, this is your money. This is your retirement. So that's what you need. You ready? Because don't count on Uncle Sam or anybody else taking care of you. You need to do it yourself.
Take
Okay.
care of yourself. Save your money up in an IRA, and it's kind of like a double whammy, right, Rick? Where you get to save money for your IRA, and then you also get all of this benefit when you do this on your taxes, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You get savings now, plus you get savings for when you retire.
Awesome. Anything else, Rick Johnson? And how do we get a hold of you?
Okay. You give us a call at 309-827-4010. You can reach us on our website at taxaccountingplus.com, or we are located at 501 North Clinton Street here in Bloomington, Illinois.
Wonderful. Rick Johnson, thanks so much for joining us here on the Morning Buzz. And folks, you have got to email Rick Johnson from Tax and Accounting Plus. And the way you do that is by emailing Rick at taxaccountingplus.com. He'll be happy to answer your questions directly. And every Tuesday, up until tax season is over, we do Tax Tip Tuesday here on the Morning Buzz. Now, I do want to shift gears, and I do want to talk a little bit about Daniel Perry. Now, Daniel Perry, this story, we're going to get into it here. It's a disturbing story. We've got Daniel Perry, and the trial for Daniel Perry ended on Friday, and the jury came back. They deliberated. They found he was guilty of the murder for the death of a man during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest. Now, Perry faced 1 count of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. They didn't get him on the aggravated assault. They got him on the murder. He was not guilty of the aggravated assault charge. Now, it was a deadly shooting of Garrett Foster. So he killed Garrett Foster in the streets of downtown Austin. Now, I want to say this, is killing immoral? Text in the comments, is killing immoral? Or are there times where killing is moral? Let me know in the comments. I'll read your comments here on air. I do want to talk about Daniel Perry and how he was found guilty. Because this is my prediction, and I've got a prediction here where the government is going to go state by state, and they are going to start taking away your guns. That's what I think is going to start happening. So let me describe what happened. So here's Daniel Perry. He's in the car, and he turned on Congress Avenue near 4th Street at about 9 o'clock at night, where there was this group of protesters. They were marching against police violence. Now, the protesters surrounded Perry's car. Foster, the guy who got shot and killed by Daniel Perry, was armed with a big weapon, as CBS, this local affiliate out of Austin, Texas, reports, an assault-style weapon. So it looks as if he had, like, maybe, I don't know, an AR-15, something like that looks right, a big, scary gun. The liberals, they call it an assault-style weapon. That's Foster, the protester who surrounded his car. Now, the former Austin police chief, Brian Manley, said that is when the driver, so the driver being Daniel Perry, fired 5 shots from within inside the vehicle. So he's in the driver's seat. He's surrounded by all of these protesters. One of the protesters has this assault-style looking gun, right? And then he grabs the gun that he's got in his car and starts firing, hitting Foster, Garrett Foster, one of the protesters, multiple times. Now, Garrett Foster never fired a shot. Another protester, after he starts shooting, right, Daniel Perry starts shooting at the car at him, and he shoots the car 3 times, but he didn't hit Daniel Perry, who was within the car. Now, Perry's defense said that he did everything he could to avoid the protesters as he dropped off one of his riders downtown. So I think that he was dropping off somebody, and then he was driving downtown, and that he was fully cooperative with the police after the incident happened, right? He turned over his phone, turned over his social media passwords right away without a warrant. Daniel, you shouldn't have done that. You should have buckled down and you should have said, nope, I want my lawyer. You don't get any of my stuff. Because guess what the defense did? They used his social media. They said that he was white supremacist because he was very open on social media about how he was anti-BLM. Now, the state argued that Perry sped up into the crowd of protesters, though that was disputed, folks, by an expert who used science and data to track the speed of the car. The expert testified that he was actually slowing down his car as he entered this big old demonstration of BLM protesters. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line. They are going to make you afraid to use your weapon. In the case of Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines, a TPUSA contributor. She was at a San Francisco University, and she was delivering a speech about how men shouldn't be in female spaces in women's sports. Men shouldn't be in women's sports. And for that, she was threatened. She was hit by men who were posing as women. She was rushed into a classroom. She was locked in there for 3 hours. We had people within the crowd, the trans Tifa, who were trying to bribe the officers into letting her out so they could hurt her. They were trying to bribe them with money. So then you've got the officers, and in the video, you can see that they've got clubs. They didn't use them. They didn't use them against the trans activists. Why? Because they're scared to use them. The cops are scared to use any kind of force against people who are in marginalized groups. It doesn't matter. If you're committing violence, then you need to be stopped. So Riley Gaines, she was going to be ripped apart by these people. And the Uvalde police, another example, right, where they were using hand sanitizer. You could literally see them in the video where they're using hand sanitizer in the hallway while babes were in the classroom being blown away by a mass shooter. And they didn't go in there. They didn't bust in there. They didn't bring the shooter down with a gun. Within minutes, like the Nashville shooting and like this recent one in Louisville, they didn't do that. Why? Because they're afraid, and they were waiting for orders. They were waiting for the bureaucracy to give them the green light because they're afraid of doing their jobs. And they're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep doing this where they instill fear into you, and they just use fear to make you not want to use your weapon against people, and particularly people who are violent towards you that are of a marginalized group who are trying to. That's the move here. That is what's going to start happening, and you're going to see this start to uptick, where people just don't use their guns when they are in violent situations. That's what I foresee happening. And then state by state, right, they're going to start with these assault weapons bans, defining assault weapons, and trying to, definitively pass legislation that gets rid of guns that might have over 15 bullets in a magazine, or they might get rid of 50 caliber bullets. Who knows, right? They're going to try to define it state by state. But for the states that don't ban guns, they're just going to use this fear of, hey, even if you have a gun, maybe you shouldn't use it on this person in this dire time of need, in this active self-defense. And that's what I believe their play is, not necessarily a federal assault weapons ban. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. We're going to get into this story about a trans activist who, a transgender person who stabbed a cab driver. That's next.
This news is being brought to you by
Tax and Accounting Plus. Don't procrastinate. Tax day is almost here, and Tax and Accounting Plus is ready to get to work. Hey guys, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. We're gonna start here shortly with some stories. I've got one about this transgender individual who shot uh or who stabbed, sorry, who stabbed and somebody in Portland and allegedly threatened another person with a weapon before this stabbing had happened, where this transgender person ultimately killed a cab driver in Portland. And there's just multiple instances of this where we had that Colorado shooter who was stopped before he could have committed a mass shooting, but he had like this manifesto and how he detailed out plans. And I think his parents were the ones who actually in Colorado brought him to the authorities. So good on the parents for doing that. But let's get back here to the show. This is the Morning Buzz. Be sure to like, comment, share, and share this out with your friends. You can also text in at 309-451-9299. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can always text in at 309-451-9299, or you can see me here live in studio and see what I'm seeing, and you can watch the videos that go along with the audio on the program. This is the Morning Buzz. Shout out to some of our sponsors, Brad Worth, your country financial agent. Then we've also got Menards. We have EnviroSeal. Go visit our advertisers and tell them that you love Cities 92.9. It helps us out and it helps them out. Go visit some of the business owners in this community. Long Branch again, McLean County Asphalt for all of your needs. Just listen to the radio program. If you have a need and you need you need a business and you are not sure where to go, I can help you. A conservative business, right? Or if you not necessarily right with somebody who spends money with us, if you like the program, then you have to spend your money with the people who support this program, right? Don't give your money to Bud Light. um don't give your money and don't give your money to people who hate you. Give your money to people who like you and understand you as a listener, and I can help you out with that. So give me a text at 309-451-9299, and I can actually help you. I mean, I use Public Square a lot of the time. Public Square is a really cool resource. They're not an advertiser or anything, but Public Square is um, a resource for you to use if you want to figure out, a coffee shop that didn't close down during the pandemic, or a bank that won't cancel you because of your political affiliation. So that's a Public Square. And if you guys want more details, you can text me. Now, I did want to get to this story about this transgender stabbing that happened. I'm going to share my screen here with those of you watching on YouTube. You can see a picture of this poser who presents himself as a woman. His name is Moses Jacob Lopez. Now, he presents himself as a woman, and he's got a couple addresses, one in Portland, one in Coos Bay, Oregon, and he's been charged now with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. Now, there's been a victim, and he was a cab driver. We don't know the name of the cab driver, but he worked with Radio City Cab out in Portland as one of their veteran drivers. Has been working there for a long, long time. Now, just days before this murder, this brutal stabbing that took place while he was in this taxi ride. So this guy, Lopez, he's an LGBTQ activist. He stabbed a guy to death on Easter Sunday. Now, he's had a history, a long, violent history of threatening behavior, and I want this to sink in. Here we go. You can see it here on I mean, just felonies, and nobody did anything. He was quickly released on without bail after he allegedly threatened another person with a weapon just a days before this brutal stabbing took place. And I need to point this out, and I want to point this out. This statistic: trans people with gender dysphoria, kill themselves at 19 times the rate than the general population does. We don't see that number anywhere else in any other population in the United States on Earth, other than in schizophrenic or very, very, very severely mentally ill people. And I bring this up because, I'm looking through the comments here, And people are like, yeah, we should totally ban guns. Guns are the problem. We need gun reform. Well, I ask you, okay, if you're for gun reform and if you're for red flag laws, I'm not personally. I think you should not take anybody's guns away. But if we were going to do some sort of gun reform, maybe we should make some sweeping legislation that says, let's take guns away from trans people who have comorbidities, who have a suicide rate that's 19 times that of the general population. I do want to shift gears here on the Morning Buzz, and I want to chat about the Louisville shooter. So I've got an audio clip here of the governor of Louisville. He lost a very close personal friend in this shooting that happened. The bank. I'm going to give you the details here, but here's what the governor had to say. Just take a listen. Here we go.
LMPD made it to this scene in a matter of minutes after receiving the call, and there is no doubt in my mind that their efforts saved lives and they put their own on the line. And we have at least one officer in surgery right now that is there because he took those actions to try to protect the people of Louisville. I want to thank Louisville Fire, Louisville Metro EMS, and Emergency Management and the Louisville Sheriff's Office for the immediate response. They've now been joined by the FBI, ATF, Homeland Security, Kentucky State Police have requested in the Louisville Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods in this response. This is awful. I have a very close friend that didn't make it today. And I have another close friend who didn't either, and one who's at the hospital that I hope is going to make it through. So when we talk about praying, I hope people will. For those that we are hoping can make it through the surgeries that they're going through, and then we've got to do what we have done these last 3 years after everything. We've got to wrap our arms around these families. And to everybody who needs it, don't be afraid to get some help. Our bodies and our minds are not meant to go through these types of tragedies. And so I hope that all the brave officers that stepped into the line of fire, that are worried about one of their fellow officers, will reach out for help when they need it. I hope every one of those bank employees and folks in that building, one that I know well, and my AG campaign was out of that building. I know virtually everyone in it. That's my bank. I hope that they will all reach out and get the help that they need. There are a lot of people that are hurting today. I want people to know that while today is a horrific act, I do believe that this is a safe community with officers doing their very best each and every day, and that's what we saw.
No, I got to stop it. I've got to stop the governor there. That was the governor of Kentucky, right? I'm going to go through the story here where we talk about the Louisville investigators are trying to piece this thing together, that what led up to this mass shooting inside the downtown bank that left 5 people dead, several victims hospitalized, including a police officer who's now in critical condition. This gunman, identified by police as an employee of the bank, Connor Sturgeon, and he was live streaming online, and he carried out this shooting at the Old National Bank, and it has since been revealed, folks, not that this is the reason why, but he has been known to post very heavily on Reddit anti-Trump and pro-lockdown posts, and he worked for this bank. Apparently, he was live streaming on Instagram, and it was still running when the police got to his body, so they stopped him. But right there, you can hear the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear's, who lost a close friend of his, and I'm hurting for him, but he's wrong, and he lied. And I'll tell you the reason why he's lying here. He's trying to make you think that you don't need a gun. And he completely avoided mentioning that police used guns to stop the shooter. Louisville is horrible. When he says that it's a safe place, he's wrong. Homicides per capita in Louisville are more than Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta. It is a place where you do not want to be. And I get the governor can't really come out and say like, oh, we've messed up and we totally we totally I have to get our stuff together here so that way we don't have this violent crime rates spiking up. And I messed up, and we've messed up in the city of Louisville, this blue city. We have to change. I get that he can't say that, but at the same time, to straight out lie, he shouldn't have lied and said that Louisville is safe because that's dangerous. You can't tell people it's safe when it's clearly not safe. The numbers don't lie. Louisville has some of the highest homicide rates in the nation, if not the highest. So don't sit there and lie. That's just dangerous. And the reason why he's lying is because he doesn't want you to get a gun to protect yourself. That's exactly the reason. On the other side, I've got another clip from the press conference. It's the mayor of Louisville, and he refuses to vilify the actions of the shooter. Instead, he vilifies the gun. That's it. An inanimate object. So I'm going to play this for you, and you're going to see what I mean on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Our news is brought to you by Menards, and Tom Davis is going to tell you about a new Starbucks coming to Bloomington. They voted on it last night, the Bloomington City Council. It's going to be on like West Market Street, somewhere around there. I don't go to Starbucks anymore. Do you? Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining the live stream. Let's look at some of the comments here. I like this one. Colson, insane people are the issue. Guns don't do anything by themselves. Yes, people kill people. And you guys are going to see this when I bring up this story here about the mayor in Louisville. And you guys are going to hear his comments. And it's so funny. Funny, but also terrible at the same time. The mayor brings up the actions of the police officers. He says, praises the actions of the police officers, which yes, we should point out good behavior when there is good behavior. But it's interesting because he says the actions of the police officer. He never says what those actions are. The actions were the gun that the officers used to bring down the shooter. Shooter being Connor Sturgeon. Is sick human being, obviously, clearly. I mean, he goes by Mr. Concussion. I don't know if it has something to do with his concussions or what exactly was going on, but clearly all of it is his actions as the shooter, and we should be condemning those actions as a society, and we don't. We condemn the gun. That's why these shootings keep happening, is because we don't have leaders at the top who say, hey, you know what? That was wrong, and that's evil, and that has no place in our society. And like, if we would have just had somebody come out and say, this is evil, this is wrong, but instead they've shifted the conversation to vilify the gun, not the shooter. We should be looking at the actions of the shooter. We do it for the police. We look at the actions of the police. We say, oh, the police did such a great job. Which, yes, yeah. But how come they don't point out the fact that the officers used a gun to bring down the shooter? I'm just saying. And then I would love to hear from Colson. I don't think he's on right now. But Colson, I mean, how do you argue with that? There should be legislation today. If you're for red flag laws, I'm not. But if you're for red flag laws and gun reform, then we should be talking about taking the guns out of the hands of people who have 19 times the suicide rate that of the general population. If anybody shouldn't have a gun, it's trans people with gender dysphoria. Um, I'm sorry, the numbers don't lie. They have 19 times the suicide rate of a general population. We didn't see that in any other population in history in the world. Also, what are we talking about this morning? Another story. Oh, this one. The US or the federal government, they've been weaponized now to go after Catholic churches. Why do you think that is? I don't know why specifically Catholic churches. Maybe it's because it's just more traditional. I don't know why they're going after Catholics in specificity. But the weaponization of government committee, which is headed up by, I think, let me look here, Jim Jordan. I know he's on it. they are talking about how the FBI, they found out now that the FBI went undercover. They sent in undercover agents. So if you're Catholic, throw it in the comments. Let me know. You might have run into one of these undercover FBI agents. Wild. So Jim Jordan, he writes a letter into the FBI director, Christopher Wray, and he says, based on limited information produced by the FBI to the committee, we know now that the FBI relied on at least one undercover agent to produce its analysis, and that the FBI proposed that these agents engage in outreach to Catholic Latin masses. So, like, they put undercover agents, at least one, in Catholic masses. My question is, are they going after the radical trans groups? Are they going after the people who tried to rip I really do believe this. Riley Gaines, the TPUSA contributor, limb from limb. Are they going after these people who do this sort of thing, or are they just going after the Catholics who are participating in Latin Mass? Are they going after the pro-abortion groups like Jane's Revenge? Are they going after people like Nicholas Roski, who went after Brett Kavanaugh and tried to kill him? Or are they going after Treehouse Antifa, who have taken up in literal tree houses and shot at officers because they don't want a cop training facility?
Hi, it's Glenn Beck urging you to tune in to the Morning Buzz with Kat Peterson. She'll get you up to date on the news of the day, and I follow her at 9 on Cities 92.9.
Three 451-9299. Now, before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about the Louisville shooter. Connor is his name. A truly heartbreaking story. And I played for you the governor of Kentucky, Andrew Beshear. And I mean, he lost a very close friend in this shooting. I feel for him, I do, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the governor lied. And he said that he believes that Louisville is safe. Well, what leads you to that belief? That's a straight up lie. Louisville is not safe. It has a higher homicide murder per capita than Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta. In no way, by any metric, can you say that you even believe Louisville is a safe place? You can believe it all you want, I guess. Now, I did want to play this. This is the mayor of Louisville, and let's just take a listen here. Here we go.
Everyone around our city, around the country, around the world, pray with us for those who are currently at U of L Hospital, injured, fighting for their lives as a result of another act of gun violence.
And there it is.
And I want to thank...
There it is. He said gun violence. I was listening to this when it was happening live, and I was like, okay, when is he going to say it? Is he going to say, no? 3 minutes up on the stage, he already says the word gun violence to trigger everybody into thinking that it's the gun, not the actions of the shooter. Here we go.
All of the first responders, the brave and heroic men and women of LMPD, who, thanks to their efforts, quickly responded to the emergency call. And as you just heard from Deputy Chief Humphrey, without a doubt, their actions saved lives. There will be
What actions? What actions? Go ahead, say it. The actions that brought down the shooter were that of the police officers going in within minutes and using a gun to shoot the mass shooter. He praised the actions of the police, but he made no mention of the shooter's actions. Why is one about the actions when it comes to the cops, but the other side, it's about the inanimate object? One is about actions, the heroic actions of the cops. Why can we not condemn evil and the actions of evil shooters, mass shooters? Why can't we do that? Let me give you an apples to apples comparison here, okay? He used a gun to shoot people, innocents. And then the cops, used a gun to stop him. It's a wash. Now, can we get to the real problem? The behavioral patterns and the evil that is taking place with this national crime rate skyrocketing. It's the only thing that we see in common with all of these shootings with the crime wave. We are shootings, stabbings, all of it. The only thing we see in common is that it's evil actions taking place. They're the shooters, the stabbers, the people who are committing this violence. There's a common denominator here. It's the actions. It happens in blue states, red states, but it really happens in large blue cities. Though largely. Now, people use guns, weapons, trucks, SUVs. You guys remember Darrell Brooks. And on one side, we're praising the behavior, and on the other side, we're vilifying the object. We should be vilifying the actions of the shooter. Why can't we condemn the behavior of the shooter? It's because they are not allowed to, folks. The mayor, the governor, they're told not to vilify the actions of the shooter, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Let me know your thoughts in the buzz line, 309-451-9299, or in the comments. I am live in studio, and you can see me in studio. Now, I mean, the raping is going up. Shootings are going up. Sunday, you heard here on Cities 92.9, we were reporting that the Cadillac Jacks, there was somebody randomly shooting into the air. Somebody was injured. There's got to be a conversation from somebody, some leaders. And I think every leader, every government leader, everybody should be having the conversation when things like this happen, the evil actions, and what happened to get them to the point to commit this evil. So we're seeing it go up again. In the 60s, there was a lot of violent crime in that decade in American history, with riots, terrorism all across major US cities. Now we're seeing it go up again. And you say, wait a second, Cat, I am a good person. Why should I have to give up my gun? Shouldn't I get to keep my gun? It's getting crazy out there. One thing is for sure, if you are if you're a liberal and you're like, oh yeah, I love gun reform. Okay, well, when somebody breaks into your house, what are you going to do? You're going to pray to God somebody gets there in time who has a gun, or you're going to wish you had a gun to bring down that assailant, or that shooter, that person who breaks into your home. Right? I don't think that there's going to be a federal ban on guns, and I think it's going to wind up happening state by state. So we're already seeing it here in the state of Illinois, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in our Illinois Supreme Court, being that two of them received millions of dollars from Governor J.B. Pritzker to run and to get their positions on that Illinois Supreme Court. But I think it's going to be a state by state thing. And then I also think at the same time, the left is going to try to get you to think that using a gun in self-defense is bad. I think that they're going to try to brainwash people into believing and to having this fear that you can't use your gun against a marginalized person, or you can't fight back a transgender person. You can't engage a transgender person. Otherwise, you're going to rot in jail, or you're going to have years and years of judicial abuse. Look at Kyle Rittenhouse. That's a perfect example of that. 309-451-9299. Bud Light. The distributors for Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, the company that owns Bud Light, they're not doing so hot. Their sales just dwindled over the weekend, and they were having like this nice winning streak in the stock for about 10 days, but then that streak was immediately halted by Dylan Mulvaney becoming their trans TikToker PR person. On the other side, I'm going to tell you who made that decision. Her name is Alyssa. And Alyssa was behind the whole Bud Light thing. And she said that the brand was just too fratty. It's just too fratty, and it needs more inclusivity. That's next on the Morning Buzz.
The news is being brought to you by the Deep End Tap and Eastland Suites. Unwind tonight with drink specials and some local brews at the Deep End Tap.
Bloomington City Council not only approved a $290 million budget on Monday, with $70 million going toward capital projects and $65 million to go to public safety, among
Yeah, I'm just trying to do my best, Daryl. I'm just trying to do my best. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like the video and share it out with your friends. Um, yeah, I don't know how come is it unpopular? Maybe it's not unpopular to say that hey, trans people shouldn't have guns. I don't believe it personally. I think red flag laws are terrible, and I think that they do more harm than good. Being that I know somebody who gets help for mental health and gets healthy again, and then they can't get a gun for the rest of their lives because they had a mental health issue years prior. And in the state of Illinois, it is just a mess. It is just a mess. Um, we've got all kinds of stories today. The suspect in this Easter Sunday stabbing murder of this Portland cab driver, it was a trans person posing as a woman yet again. And here we are. It's men committing violence. It's men committing violence. It's women who are taking testosterone synthetically who are committing the violence, right? It's pretty clear once we start to grasp what's really going on here, who, and you have to understand the population difference. So a lot of times libs they'll say, "Oh, well, if you look at the numbers, it's definitely more white males who commit mass shootings. It's definitely more white males who um, are more violent." Well, you have to look at the population size, right? So obviously, the transgender community very, very small in comparison to the general population of the United States. But then you take into account population size, and they are committing crimes. They have a higher criminality rate than that of somebody who is in the general population, a man in the general population. It's just that's just the facts. Couple of your uh, comments here. Yes, 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 yes. God bless you, my friend. God bless you. Um, yeah, and be sure to like and follow all of our content. Hold on one sec. Live, you guys can see me live in studio, and I so do appreciate all of your comments. And be sure to like and follow our page. It's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitter. And check us out. Now before I go and you guys listen to Glenn Beck for the rest of the day, Glenn Beck and then Dan Bongino, then Sean Hannity. I did want to talk a little bit about the Bud Light failure. They are literally failing right now, and you can see that when you go into Walmart. It's all on sale. The beer's on sale. It's on the end caps, and they're like trying to get rid of this beer. And you're probably wondering, well, who was behind this? Who who decided to make Dylan Mulvaney the trans TikToker, the guy who said that women have Barbie pockets instead of vaginas? Who made that decision? Well, her name's Alyssa. And she said that the brand was too fratty and that it needed to be more inclusive. Okay. No. A lot of us enjoyed the lowbrow, funny commercials of the past because guess what? It it highlighted the non-elite status of that beer. Bud Light was it is a blue collar beer. It was. It was a brewski that the guys and gals could drink while watching sports, hanging out in the garage. I remember, um, drinking Bud Light. I've always been kind of a Coors person, so but it was relatively cheap for young people to drink. If you didn't want to blow all your money on some sort of hoppy IPA. But I'm betting that most of its clientele is not made up of the kind of people who, in their spare time, watch a biological male prance around in a dress and take bubble baths. I'm just my guess, and I think that I'm right. It's going to take a long time for Bud Light to recover from this one. One other thing that I wanted to bring up this morning was um, the movie Super Mario Brothers. It hit high scores, a record opening for an animated picture film at $377 million. So this is huge. And here's the thing, folks. It's not even like a political. Now, Chris Pratt is a very strong Christian. I think that he leans a little bit more conservatively. So it just goes to show you that there is a hunger for films that are not woke. And this wasn't woke. This was just a normal film, despite, protests from this guy, John Leguizamo. And he was like, oh, you guys shouldn't watch it because, they casted two white men in this. Here, let's take a listen. Here we go. Yeah, got some Latin folk. Oh, come on, you gotta be kidding me. So there was that woke actor, and he was upset, because there was no Latin folk in the cast of the Super Mario Brothers, and he was like, it lacked a diversity. And it just also shows if you look at the comments here, the critics of this film, right? They totally did not like the film. The critics, they were like, oh no, it's weak and it's not a good film, but you loved it. I mean, clearly because you went out and you spent your money on it and it surpassed that one movie. What was it? Lightyear? Lightyear only grossed like I think 80 million, just over 80 million. This grossed globally $377 million in comparison to that Lightyear film that was just woke nonsense. All right, folks, you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday, and be sure to find the podcast on Spotify. We're on Spreaker, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on all kinds of different platforms. Glenn Beck is up after me. Bye-bye. I love you. Have a great rest of your day. All right. Before I go, I did want to chat with y'all. I think you guys can hear me. Okay. About any kind of news stories that you had questions on. So please share and like this video, subscribe to our channel. Any questions, comments, concerns? I do think that I got to every story on my show prep. Would you guys be interested in getting some of my show prep and getting the articles? Let me know in the comments, and we can try to arrange for you guys to get those via our email Insiders Club. Now, let me help you with our Insiders Club. You guys can go there and I've just pulled up these Lightyear films. It's really easy. You just go to cities99.com. It's super simple. And you can click on Insiders Club and you can type in your email. And from there, you can type in your email, your name, your address, your birthday, and you can be a part of our Insiders Club, which is, I mean, you get the news, you get all kinds of things that other people don't get. You're kind of like in the club, right? So we had a lot of stories today. And I think that's going to wrap up the show. If you want more content, please let me know in the comments and share it out with your friends. All right. Bye-bye. I love you guys. See ya.